Good morning, everybody. Susanna Anderson here with the Are They All Yours blog at StephenAndersonFamily.com. I'm sorry I'm starting late, as always. So if I shoot for 8 o'clock, I guess by 8:30, I'm doing good. So today I want to talk about a very heated topic, and I'm expecting that this video will get lots of thumbs down from all the people who have used organ donation, have benefited from it, have profited from it. But my goal with this video is not to be popular. My goal with this video is to help you understand the issues at work in organ donation so you can make your own intelligent decision of what you do and do not feel comfortable with. And if you ever have to make these decisions, so that you know how to respond in a way that you find ethically most appropriate for yourself. So I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. I'm just going to share with you some facts that many Americans do not know about organ donation. Now, just a quick note about the video. For some reason, I can see the chat while it's happening. Well, if I'm looking at it, which I usually don't while I'm talking. But after the fact, I'm having a problem with, first of all, I need to silence my phone so it doesn't keep chirping. I forgot to do that. Give me 1 second. Okay, there, it's silenced. I'm having a problem with the chat replay. Even though I set it to chat replay, it doesn't show afterwards. So if I answer a question, I'm first going to read the question so that for future viewers who cannot see the chat, they will know what question I'm answering. So anyway, organ donation. The first thing I want to say is that there's a lot of information online, and a lot of the things I will be talking about today are based on this book called The Undead by Dick Teresi, who is a physician. And this is a very good book. If you look it up on Amazon, and I'm also going to link it in the description below, you will find that it has a very low rating. It's kind of like at a 3-star rating. And the reason for that is the same reason why our church has like a 2-point-something 3-star rating, because there's only two kinds of people: those who rate this book 5-star and those who rate it 1-star, depending on which side of the debate they're on. It doesn't actually reflect upon the facts in the book. It's just a very emotionally charged topic. Of course, you're dealing with loved ones, the death of loved ones, the survival of other loved ones, so people are very emotional about it. It's a very emotionally charged topic, and people just do not respond well when, you know, called out on this. So anyway, without further ado, the reason why we decided to pick this topic for this week, there was an article in the news locally this week where a young man in his 20s had died in a tragic accident, but he wasn't really dead. I mean, he was still breathing and had a heartbeat. He was brain dead, which I will get into the definition of brain dead. So he wasn't dead like gray, no pulse, rigor mortis. He was dead like brain dead. And he had specifically said that he did not want his organs harvested should anything tragic happen to him. However, when the family got the body back, parts of his body had been harvested for organ donation, and the family is suing. And there was an article about that, and people were outraged that the family would sue about that. And they said, you know, it should be required by law that everybody has to donate their organs when they die, and they shouldn't get a choice about it because they are just going in the ground, and what good is it to anybody, and it's just a selfish thing to not donate organs. And I want to give a different perspective on that. I am not an organ donor. I used to think organ donation was a good thing, and I used to even want to be an organ donor until I learned what I'm about to share with you today. So, first of all, the organ donation business is a major, major business. Now, of course, those who are into organ harvesting and organ transplants will say, well, no, we're not allowed to pay. And it is true that by law, the families of the victims are not allowed to be remunerated, financially compensated for the organs. And that's so that there would not be an incentive on their end to, you know, want to sell off their brain dead, semi-dead relatives. However, the organ donation industry, and I don't know what these figures are based on because from this book is about 8 or 10 years old. The transplant industry at the time of this writing was a $20 billion per year business. Now, $20 billion a year in medical costs, that's a very hefty chunk of money. In addition to that, more than $1 billion a year are spent on the immunosuppressive drugs that are needed for transplant recipients to not reject the donor organ that they're receiving. Donor surgeons make top dollar amongst doctors. They make an average of $400,000 per year. And they and their staff often fly in private jets because when they get an organ, when they have to go for a transplant, they have to get there fast. So it is a very big business. The hospitals also charge administrative fees for their part in this business, and that's just the administrative fees is just how they get around getting paid. So they just get top dollars in administrative fees for finding and sharing organs. So basically everybody makes big money in this except for the most important people, which is the organ donor and their family. So, okay, whatever. I mean, if they're dead, they don't need their organs. Somebody's making money on it, but it's no loss to them. Except when we come in here with the definition of death. Now, this book does a really good job of explaining the history of death and how death has traditionally been defined. And it spends the first 80 pages or so explaining on what physiological symptoms death used to be based upon. It was based on things such as no circulation, which means no heartbeat, no breathing, no respiration, rigor mortis, decomposition, smell, discoloration, all sorts of different things like that, all physiological symptoms. There have been many different ways of defining death, but they were always based on physiological symptoms. Well, when organ transplants first became a thing, and I forget exactly when the first organ transplant happened, but shortly after organ transplants were first successfully carried out, in 1968, and I'm reading this directly from the book, 13 men gathered at the Harvard Medical School to virtually undo 5,000 years of the study of death. And I'm skipping down here. A good deal of medical language was used, but in the end, the Harvard criteria switched the debate from biology to philosophy. You are dead, not when your heart cannot be restarted, you can no longer breathe or your cells die, but when you suffer a loss of personhood. And that was the invention of brain death. So to diagnose brain death, they check activity in the brain stem. And if there's no activity in the brain stem, they say you are brain dead and you cannot possibly come back to have your brain function properly again. So that's the definition of brain death, which conveniently came in after there started to be a market for organs. And if I sound morbid, I apologize. There's no way to get around it. It is a very morbid business. For instance, the term organ harvesting, I mean, when we think of harvesting, we think of, bringing in crops to make a living. And that's what they do. That's why they don't like to use the word organ harvesting. It's more now going to organ retrieval, which to retrieve something means to find something that you lost. It's not like these organs were lost and anybody was looking for them. So this definition of brain death might not be what you and I would consider brain death. In fact, there are many instances of people who are brain dead coming back to life. Now, admittedly, many people who are brain dead have a permanent loss of their consciousness and might eventually truly, literally, physically die. However, there are others who come back. There have been people who were wheeled in for surgery to have their organs removed who came back to life, quote unquote, on the operating table. I mean, they truly die as far as physical symptoms the moment their chest is broken open, cut open for organ removal. That's why organ donors, the dead people, have to be sedated. They are under anesthesia. They're heavily sedated so that they do not, on the operating, start having physical reactions. And you know, the thing about brain dead people, when you think of a dead person, you typically think of like cold, stiff, gray, not breathing, not having a pulse. The brain dead are what's called a beating heart cadaver because they have a beating heart. They are warm, they are pink, they are breathing, and they don't look dead. They are kind of a subspecies, but they look sick, but they're not dead and they don't look dead. So they have to be sedated for the surgery. If a person were actually truly dead, there are only very few items that can be taken from the body, such as I believe the corneas can be harvested and some other parts like that that do not decompose. But as soon as a body physically dies, the organs can no longer be harvested. Just like when we eat meat, no meat can be eaten or sold, slaughtered, taken from animals that have died of their own causes or are already dead. You can only butcher animals that are still alive because as soon as the moment the body dies, there's toxins released, fluids are shutting down, it becomes unusable. That's why when a person is brain dead and in critical condition, the surgeons have to move in very, very quickly. They have to try to do this. I mean, they can do it in as little as 12 hours because they have to do a blood test to check for HIV and other things. So time is of the essence because these beating heart cadavers at any minute could have a heart attack and die again, and then their organs cannot be used. That's why these organ transplants have to happen very quickly. So these people are not truly dead. They die when their organs are harvested. That's when they truly physically die. Now, there are also some organs that can be harvested and shared where both recipients are alive. Kidney transplants is one example of that. You could be a donor for somebody and give them part of your kidney will regrow, they can take yours. So there are exceptions to this, such as, you know, the corneas, the kidneys. This book will be more scientific about that than I can be, but by and large, the major organs, the lungs, just all the liver, things like that, the major organs cannot be harvested from a dead person, and they cannot be harvested without the organ donor dying. And yes, they might die anyway, but I personally do not want to take that chance. I do not want to be an organ donor, and I do not want to accept, even for our children, I would not accept an organ from that. I would, unfortunately, it would be more morally acceptable for a person to die than to kill somebody else to maybe give another person a chance to live. Because it's not like it's guaranteed that these organs will take. It's not a guaranteed, well, this person is probably going to die and the recipient is likely going to live. It's not likely. They have to take very hardcore drugs to suppress their immune system from attacking the new organ that's foreign to them. And so there's a chance that for all this, it's not even going to help the recipient, but I simply cannot, under any circumstances, justify knowingly killing one human being to help another human being. That's not the way God sees it. The ends does not justify the means. I would neither want to be an organ donor, nor would I want to be a recipient of an organ donation, unless it's something that can be taken from a truly dead person, or that can be taken from somebody who is going to live. Now, the other danger in being an organ donor yourself, let's say that you do not care and you think, well, if I'm brain dead, I consider that dead, and I'm okay with taking the chance of being sedated as they cleave my chest open and piecemeal me, so if I go, whatever, I might be helping somebody else. But the danger with having that little sticker on your driver's license that you're an organ donor, you know, the danger in that is that you might be worth more dead than alive. You might be in a critical, tragic accident, which is typically the case with organ donors. I mean, nobody's taken organs from a 78-year-old who's dying of old age. These are typically young, healthy people who, for whatever reason, had a tragic accident and are now in critical condition. And the problem with having that sticker on there is that you might be worth more dead than alive. Piecemealing you out in parts to the hospital and selling off your organs, which again is not legal, but it happens, just under administrative costs and the fees associated with organ donation. Just ask any organ donor recipient if the treatment was free, and they will laugh at you. It is more expensive than cancer treatment. It is the most expensive medical treatment out there. So the hospital or the administration might decide, well, this person's probably not going to make it anyway. They don't have health insurance. It's just easier and makes us a lot more money to declare them brain dead and not really care about bringing them back as much as piecemealing them and selling them off. So by having that sticker on your driver's license, you have just guaranteed that there's a real financial incentive in your death. And do you really want to drive on the road with there being a financial incentive for your death? I mean, if you're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in pieces when you die, and they're not going to get that much money out of you if you live, and especially if you then eventually still die of a heart attack or whatever, then they might never get paid. You know, that's just a financial conflict that I wouldn't want the doctors in my life to have. So these are just some of the perspectives on death and brain death and the dirty business of organ donation, and why you never want to go down the road of saying, well, people have to donate their organs because it's of no use to them. And if you want to know how often it happens that people actually come back from the dead, quote unquote, it does happen. In fact, there was a case, you can just Google it, you know, brain dead people who've woken up. But I will also try to share some links below. There's a pro-life website that has compiled a list of all of them. There was a case like that in Arizona a few years ago where the lady was already on the operating table. There was another case of a young boy, I believe he was about 12, and he had cancer, was declared brain dead, and the parents had just signed the organ donation form when the child woke up. There were other cases where the family was pleading with doctors not to turn off the machines, who insisted the patients were brain dead, and the doctors insisted, no, they're not coming back, we're turning off the machine. And at the last minute, I believe the father or some relative brother maybe, they were actually arresting him because he was refusing to leave the bedside of this sick relative of his. And while they were doing that, the patient twitched his leg or his toe and made a full recovery. And later said, you know, that they heard the doctors saying, there's no hope, they're brain dead, we need to turn off the machines, they're not coming back. And again, I'm sure that in the majority of cases, that truly is what happens, that they truly do not come back. But that's not a chance I want to take with my loved one. If they're not dying of natural causes, I'm not pushing them over the edge. I'm especially not pushing them over the edge by having them wheeled into an operating theater and having them chopped open to remove organs so the medical establishment can make $400 billion a year, which I'm sure is more now. This figure is probably at least 10 years old. So anyway, that's on the unpopular topic of organ donation. Like I said, come to your own conclusion, make your own choices. I just wanted you to know the other side of the coin, that organ donation is not just this cut and dry issue where dead people are helping other people stay alive. That's sadly not what it happens. And again, I am giving a caveat. There are donations that can be done ethically without people dying, kidney donation being one of them. I recently read about a little boy who got a transplant kidney from another donor, and it saved his life. He didn't have to go on dialysis. So there are good ways to use it. Modern medicine can be a double-edged sword. There's wonderful things we can do, and we just always have to view everything in light of the dignity of life and respecting life, and not ever doing anything that intentionally takes another life when we decide of what treatments are and are not acceptable. There are many wonderful modern advances in medicine that we can use to save life and to preserve life, but unfortunately there are others where it's taking life, so you never want to be participating in those, and that's why it's so important to educate yourself and to learn about these issues. Anyway, if you have any questions, I'm going to keep my eye on the live stream just for a minute. I'm not seeing anything. Pardon my squinty eyes. I'm sitting outside. It is 8:30 a.m. here, and the sun is high and bright in the sky. And nice and hot out here. So how long would I keep a loved one on life support? I cannot answer that question. I do not know. I have not looked into that enough. So there's another story, a very good story. This person wasn't brain dead, but I'll try to link the book in the description, of a young man in South Africa who became ill. He had some kind of viral infection. It affected his brain, and he went into a vegetative state for, I believe, 10 or 12 years. And he could hear, after about 4 or 5 years, he came out of it mentally, where he could hear the people around him, and he knew everything they said, but he could not move a single part of his body. The only thing that he could control were his eyes. And it was years after being trapped and imprisoned in his own body that one of the caretakers at the facilities where he was said, "I think he understands. I think that he is listening." And she found a way to communicate with him through the use of his eyes. And they eventually set up a computer where he could type out words by looking at them on the screen. And I believe he has since regained some of his capacities, but he can now, he's still wheelchair bound, but he can communicate. I believe he's even married. So the human brain is a marvelous, marvelous engineering wonder. And especially, like I said, people that are organ donors are typically young, healthy people. They especially can bounce back from issues that the older people cannot bounce back, because it's typically a tragical accident that put them in that state. It's not age or their organs failing naturally. So the human body can heal, and the brain can heal, and connections can be rewired that were previously not working. So I will share that book too as a related book in the description of this video below. So anyway, I'm over my 20 minutes. I hope that this video is helping give some perspective on this topic. And if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments below. You have a wonderful day. God bless you. Bye.